Good evening, friends, and welcome all of you to this special session today. And the session is special for more reasons than one. First is because we are covering an iconic book today. This book is very popular, sold over 2 million copies. And Eckhart Tolle is a great author. He's a German. He's born in Germany, studied in UK, and living in Canada right now. So he brings a tremendous international perspective, and he's a Cambridge scholar, Cambridge research scholar. So brings a lot of intellectual credibility, and but also because we have Dr. Nupur who lives in UK, London, and she's joining us from there. It's possibly 1 degree there, Dr. Nupur.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Ashish. Yes, it is very close to that. Yeah, it feels like I think even a lot cooler. So yeah.
So
Yes.
that's one of the things. We have very special speaker and very special book that we are covering today. Second is also because we have been going back and forth with this session for planning this session for last 2-3 months, and finally we got the date and everything right for this session. And thirdly, it's special because this is my first session after recovering from COVID. And please allow me to talk a couple of minutes about my experience of going through COVID. I hope it is okay with you. During the last 2 weeks, I have been battling with COVID, where my energy levels dropped tremendously, to the possibly to the lowest levels that I experienced in life. And I'm sharing this not to scare with you, but I see some of the people in my friend circle getting very casual about COVID now. So I thought, I'll share my personal experience so that you can continue to be cautious about COVID. And many things that we take for granted during the 2 weeks, I realized that are not to be taken for granted. Something like we just get up from the bed and go about doing our daily work, right? But what if we don't have the energy to get up from the bed and do the work? We take for granted that we'll have the energy to go to office and do work, but I experienced that is not to be taken for granted. We take our breathing for granted, right? We always assume that our lungs will keep pumping in and out the oxygen. But what if the lungs are not strong enough? Because COVID, one of the things COVID impacts is your lungs. And there was a day when I could barely breathe, and that is when I needed to be hospitalized. And we always assume that the beds will be there in the hospital, right? But with the hospital I went to was completely full. So with great difficulty, we managed to get a bed, and that too in a general ward. So those are the kind of things I went through. We take our appetite for granted, right? That we'll feel hungry. But what if you're not feeling hungry? Or we take our taste buds for granted. We will eat tasty food and we will relish it. But what if you're not able to taste the food that we are eating, or if we don't have the appetite? So it was, last couple of weeks have been very challenging for me, and it tested a lot of assumptions I have. And one of the things I would like to request you to do with me is to practice a lotus of gratitude, a practice I learned from Mr. Rohan Singhal recently. So please, fold your fingers like this, as if it's a petal of the lotus. And we will go one by one. And, for each finger, please thank one person, a thing, or event in your life. So, I'm grateful that I am alive. You don't need to speak it out, but you can do silently. You can close your eyes, fold your fingers, and for each person, thing, or event, you can just say, I'm grateful that I'm alive. I'm grateful that I'm able to breathe. I'm grateful that my body organs like heart, kidney, liver are functioning well. I'm grateful that my family is safe and with me. I'll stop here. I'll stop speaking here, and I'll let you do your own thing. And then, maybe in a couple of seconds, we'll come back together once we've completed the exercise. And once you have done the lotus of gratitude, please place the hand on your heart and feel grateful for being on this beautiful planet Earth. It's important that, gratitude is a heart energy, so it's important that we feel it, feel the gratitude in the heart, and not just go through the motion of saying the words, but feel them in your heart. Secondly, what I wanted to share with you is when the energy levels are so low, uh, like I witnessed, there are all kinds of thoughts and possibilities, and sometimes not all of them are pleasant, that pass your mind. What will happen if I don't recover, or things like that. And one of the things that helped me tremendously during this period was the practice of being in the present, and not being anxious about what's going to happen to me, or not worrying about why it happened to me, because like I mentioned a little while back, I'm not really stepping out, we're not really socializing, partying, but still I got this COVID. So rather than feel like a victim, or feel pity for myself, or feel pity for my family members why they got it through me, or feel anxious about what's going to happen to me, or if something bad were to happen, what will happen. I just stayed focused on the present. I took each day as it is, and that gave me tremendous power to deal with the situation, and made my recovery possible. And it is in this context, the book reading also is very special today. And with that backdrop, I would like to invite Dr. Nupur to talk about this powerful book, The Power of Now. Dr. Nupur, as I mentioned earlier, is a certified mindfulness teacher and a health and well-being expert specializing in mind-body connection. Her research work has been published in leading European journals and has also been rewarded. Dr. Nupur will be reading certain passages from the book that include stories, that includes talking about suffering, about salvation, and do we have now or do we have future, and some of those things she's going to clarify. So with that backdrop, over to you, Dr. Nupur.
Thank you so much, Ashish, and wishing you all the wellness, and hope you recover really well and really soon. So, thank you for sharing that very precious insight with all of us. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, whichever part of the world you are in. It's still morning for me. It's almost 10:40 a.m. in UK. It's a pleasure for me to be here on this forum to speak about Mr. Eckhart Tolle. He is a world-renowned spiritual teacher, and if I can use the word enlightened, he is an enlightened master that walks amongst us at this point in time. Very privileged to have his teachings and knowledge that are supporting so many of us through these times. And if this is the first time you're hearing of Mr. Eckhart, I really recommend that you look him up. There are a lot of his videos on YouTube. And the first book he published, I think around late 90s, was the book that we have chosen today, as that has been Ashish and mine's inspiration that led us to walk the path of becoming mindfulness teachers. So with that introduction and a great welcome to all of you, and thank you for taking this time out to be with us today. Let me begin by what Mr. Eckhart writes in his book, Power of Now. This is page 13. If some of you have the book, you can read along with me. So what we have planned for today is I would be reading some paragraphs, some portions. We have limited time, so we'll do our best. And I'll also endeavor to do a bit of experience sharing. Maybe we'll do a 5-minute meditation to not only speak about the power of now, but also to experience this power in our lives. So I would start with page number 13, where he talks about you are not the mind. And it's a small story which I will read out to you. A beggar had been sitting by the side of a road for over 30 years. One day a stranger walked by. "Spare some change," mumbled the beggar, mechanically holding out his old baseball cap. "I have nothing to give you," said the stranger. Then he asked, "What's that you are sitting on?" "Nothing," replied the beggar, "just an old box. I have been sitting on it for as long as I can remember." "Ever looked inside?" asked the stranger. "No," said the beggar. "What's the point?" "There's nothing in there." "Have a look inside," insisted the stranger. The beggar managed to pry open the lid. With astonishment, disbelief, and elation, he saw the box was filled with gold. "I am that stranger who has nothing to give you and who is telling you to look inside. Not inside my box, as in the parable, but somewhere even closer, inside yourself." "But I'm not a beggar," I can hear you say. Those who have not found their true wealth, which is the radiant joy of being and the deep, unshakable peace that comes with it, are beggars. Even if they have great material wealth, they are looking outside for scraps of pleasure or fulfillment, for validation, security, or love, while they have a treasure within that not only includes all those things, but is infinitely greater than anything the world can offer. The word enlightenment conjures up the idea of some superhuman accomplishment, and the ego likes to keep it that way. But it is simply your natural state of felt oneness with being. It is a state of connectedness with something immeasurable and indestructible, something that almost paradoxically is essentially you, and yet is much greater than you. It is finding your true nature beyond name and form. So with that introduction, I would like to ask if anybody has any thoughts about that story, any thoughts about that introduction. You can unmute yourselves and speak. Power of Now is Eckhart Tolle's way of telling us that we are more than our felt body and the mind apparatus that we have used and worked with so far. And that's what this book endeavors us to reflect. Yes, Anil, I can see your hand go up. Do you want to share something? You can unmute yourself.
I was clapping actually.
Okay.
Very insightful.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So let's go on to the next section of the book, where we actually talk about that what Eckhart talks about in Power of Now is two ways of approaching that presence within us. The first way that he talks about is recognizing that you are not your mind. You use your mind, you have a mind, but you are not your mind. You are a presence, you are beingness, which is far more deeper and far more vaster than what you perceive, what we all perceive ourselves to be. And the second way that he talks about, which are actually both very interconnected, is the power of now, which is the title of this book. So I'm going to read a passage here. Realize deeply, this is from page number 27, if you're following along. Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have. Make the now the primary focus of your life. Whereas before you have dwelt in time and paid brief visits to the now, have your dwelling place in the now and pay brief visits to the past and the future, when required, to deal with the practical aspects of your life situation. Always say yes to the present moment. What could be more futile, more insane than to create inner resistance to something that already is? What could be more insane than to oppose life itself, which is now and always now? Surrender to what is. Say yes to life and see how life suddenly starts working for you rather than against you. The present moment is sometimes unacceptable, unpleasant, or even awful. That's the question that was asked, and Eckhart replies, it is as it is. Observe how the mind labels it and how this labeling process, this continuous sitting in judgment, creates pain and unhappiness. By watching the mechanics of the mind, you step out of its resistance patterns, and you can then allow the present moment to be. This will give you a taste of the state of inner freedom from external conditions, the state of true inner peace. Then see what happens and take actions if necessary or possible. Accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. Make it your friend, an ally, and not your enemy. This will miraculously transform your whole life. So friends, that's what Eckhart talks about, befriending this moment and recognizing that this is the moment where we all exist. This is the only moment that we ever exist in. And the more we can be aware and be more present in the now, the more the space of inner peace, inner connectedness, inner spaciousness starts to grow for us. And that's what this paragraph on page number 27 is all about. Any thoughts, any reflections, any things that you would like to share before we go on to the next section? Anybody felt anything particularly while we were reading this?
There is a very nice share that I had come across, Dr. Nupur, and I would like to share that. It's in Hindi and then I'll translate it later. जिंदगी संवारने को तो जिंदगी पड़ी है, वो लम्हा सवार लो जहां पे जिंदगी खड़ी है.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so roughly translated, it says that, we have our whole lives to take care of the whole of life. But if we take care of the moment where the life currently is, then the life will sort itself out. We are always running from the past to the future. And, we, in that process of running between past and future, we miss the present. But if we live our life moment by moment, if we take care of each moment, then the life will get sorted out itself. So I think that's a very powerful message there from Eckhart Tolle, Dr. Nupur, that now is what we have got. There is nothing else. The past is gone and future is not come. Future is an illusion. Now is what we have got. And rather than be focused on the now, we are always thinking of the future or worrying about what has happened in the past and things like that. So I found that very, very powerful, Dr. Nupur. And second thing that you mentioned was about mind. A lot of people getting trapped in the mind, and rather than using mind as a tool, we kind of start thinking that we are our mind. So if you would like to elaborate a little bit about that, how being in the present can help us be focused and, get in touch with that deeper aspect of for ourselves, beat the mind, because there's so many thoughts going on in the mind always. How to beat the mind, how to use it, recognize it for what it is rather than get consumed by it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, as I was saying, Ashish, this book really talks very beautifully. And we would really encourage, because for the limitation of time, we can't really cover all the aspects. But this book, one of the fundamental aspects, and which has actually was something of an eye-opener for me when I started on this journey many years ago, was that I am not my mind. I am not my thoughts. I am aware of my thoughts. Thoughts happen to me. Thoughts come and thoughts go. Mind is just a tool, an instrument that is actually given to us to live our lives, perhaps use it as a very powerful instrument, but not define ourselves by the mind, by thoughts. And unless this was pointed out by a spiritual teacher like Eckhart, it could have taken me a lifetime to come to this recognition that I am the awareness, or I am the observing, the witnessing space, the witnessing energy that knows my thoughts, knows my mind, versus me earlier believing to be myself as the mind or the thoughts that I have. And this recognition, this realization itself was very freeing, because that means that you're not a victim of what your mind is throwing at you, what your thoughts are thinking, but you can actually be more present, be more aware to use your mind versus letting the mind use you. So that is a transformational recognition. And that's why Eckhart Tolle is a master, enlightened master of self-realization, because he says enlightenment can sound like a very heavy word, but all that it means is that once we become that we are not who we have always believed ourselves to be, we can go deeper into a dimension that gives us peace, joy, bliss, and all. We have heard it from various, whichever religious background we may be from, that we are not our, stop seeking for these things outside of you. There is a well, there's a reservoir of peace, joy, and happiness inside of you. And the more you recognize this through this power of presence, through the recognition, the more you can then become, you use your mind as something like a tool, be empowered. And that's what this book does to you. I would really just come with that point to a question that was asked to Eckhart. This is page number 43. If anybody's following live with me.
Just a minute, Dr. Nupur. For the benefit of everybody, I would like to share that we have uploaded the copy of the book in the chat section. So in case you would like, you can go there and download your copy. You may find that the page numbers vary a little bit from what Dr. Nupur is mentioning, but broadly it should align 1 or 2 pages here or there with the numbers that Dr. Nupur is mentioning. Thanks, Dr.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashish. This is a very relevant topic, so I thought I'll just come to a relevant paragraph to what we were discussing. So a questioner asks Eckhart that I don't see how I can be free now. As it happens, I'm extremely unhappy with my life at the moment. This is a fact, and I would be deluding myself if I tried to convince myself that all is well, when it definitely isn't. To me, the present moment is very unhappy. It is not liberating at all. What keeps me going is the hope or possibility of some improvement in the future. So to this, Eckhart replies, you think that your attention is in the present moment when it is actually taken up completely by time. You cannot be both unhappy and fully present in the now. I'll repeat that line, it's a very powerful line. You cannot be both unhappy and fully present in the now. What you refer to as your life, quote unquote, should be more accurately be called your life situation. It is psychological time, past and future. Certain things in the past didn't go the way you wanted them to go. You are still resisting what happened in the past. And now you're resisting what is. Hope is what keeps you going, but hope keeps you focused on the future. And this continued focus perpetuates your denial of the now, and therefore creating your unhappiness. It is true that my present life situation is the result of things that happened in the past, but it is still my present situation, says the questioner. And being stuck in it is what makes me unhappy. Forget about your life situation for a while and pay attention to your life. What is the difference, he asks. Your life situation exists in time. Your life is now. Your life situation is mind stuff. Your life is real. Find the narrow gate that leads to life. It is called the now. Narrow your life down to this moment. Your life situation may be full of problems. Most life situations are. But find out if you have any problem in this moment. Not tomorrow or in 10 minutes, but now. Do you have a problem now? When you are full of problems, there is no room for anything new to enter, no room for a solution. So whenever you can, make some room, create some space so that you find the life underneath your life situation. What Eckhart actually says so beautifully here is that by being present, by being in the now, we can actually start to create space for solutions to come in, rather than being incessantly focused on the problems and the challenges that life presents. So being present in the now is actually creating that window of opportunity, that space. And the more we read a book like this, the more we practice the practices he suggests, the more we enter into this present moment, into this inevitable now that we all live in, but we actually believe that we are living in the past or the future because of the mind focus. So Ashish, before we realize the time has actually run away, and as we're talking about being in the now, I'm just recognizing we have only 3 minutes left. So friends, we will just end with a very quick coming into the present moment, but if any questions are there, any sharings are there, very happy to take them. Ashish, if you have anything to say.
Yeah, no, there's a very powerful point there that Eckhart Tolle makes. Even in the earlier passages that you read, Dr. Nupur, he talks about making peace with the present, and most of the times we are either craving for things or we are resisting things, rather than just accept things as they are. And the minute we start accepting things as they are, we start making peace with the situation. And when we start making peace with the situation, it, if I may use the word, magically opens up the possibilities for solutions. As long as we are resisting and trying to run away or push things away, the solution also, we are also pushing away the solution. We are not only pushing away the problem, but we are also pushing away the solution. And by being in the present, we open up ourselves up to all kind of possibilities, because present is the only thing that we have. We don't have anything else other than present. And if we are not in the present now, if we are not in the moment now, if we are not in the session now, where are we? We are not doing justice to being in this session. We are not doing justice to wherever we are, our mind is. So it's very important to be, for deep work or for any other productivity or for anything else, that we remain focused on the present and we stay in the time for productivity and for peace of mind purpose. For both the ways it works very, very powerfully. So it's a very powerful stuff there that you mentioned, Dr. Nupur.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the most profound ways which we as mindfulness facilitators recommend is by coming into the breath. So let's end the last minute that we have by all just coming into our own presence. Let's experience our own beingness of just coming into this moment, coming into our own breath. Noticing the breath as this moves into the body and out. Just be aligned and fully aware of your own breath right now. one breath at a time. Recognizing that this breath is always in this moment. The breath always breathes by itself in this present moment. Never breathing in the past. And never being in the future. So using the present moment as an anchor. Through your breath, getting anchored in this moment whenever you can find the possibility to just be fully present in the here and now. Recognizing that nature has actually given us all this wonderful breath to become fully present anytime we wish to. All that we need to do is recognize that our own breath is an anchor into this moment. Into the now. Thank you. So friends, Ashish just wanted to confirm if we have more time.
Yeah, Dr. We can go on till about 5 p.m. or so. So we have another 25 minutes.
Okay, wonderful. So just coming back to the passage, if anybody has any reflections, any thoughts, feel free to share. Otherwise, I'll continue with the reading. Okay, so yeah. Do I hear somebody? Is there a question?
Yeah. Somehow this whole thing sounds a bit abstract to me. Is it really abstract, or is it just my mind saying so? Uh, where I'm coming from is like, see, because now itself gives you a sense of time, and how do we define now? Like this moment, if we define now as let's say a moment, the moment is gone after some time and it becomes the past, and suddenly we are in the future. So there will be always a past and a future, and it's becomes difficult to live in the now, because the now is very fleeting and somehow seems to be fleeting, and we are always like, if I think of myself, I'm let's say about 70% of the time I'm, or 80, maybe more than that, I'm in the past, and maybe a little bit in the future, and rarely in the present. And it makes it makes it very difficult for me to understand what exactly is now. To some extent I could understand when you said when you gave the example of the breath, just now we did the breathing, I understood, but I mean, can you throw some more light on this?
Yeah, thank you, Anil, for that question. So we, by default, have not really lived our lives in the present moment, because we are so caught up in the workings of the mind, thinking about the past influencing our behavior and planning for the future, that somehow the now moment feels like a means to an end. So far, we have always worked in the now as if the now is a means to an end. We have never really given it the due credit. We have really never sat and experienced the nowness of this moment. And the more you start experiencing the nowness of this moment, you'll start realizing that this present moment then starts to become not a fleeting moment that you were saying, but it starts to open up a possibility of an expanded, timeless spaciousness for you, a timelessness. Because if you really reflect, the now never ends. The now continues into the next now. But we have such a fascination for time as a linear timeline that for us every time means like the clock ticking. But if you just go beyond the concept of time as what's there in the clock or in our watches, you start to realize that this now never ceases to end. It starts becoming a continuum which is present behind our experience, behind our activities. And once you recognize that this moment itself can offer you something, then you will stop we all have an addiction for going either into the past or into the future, or using the present as a means to fulfill the future or to justify the past. What we have never really considered the possibility, the entire, the gift that this moment has. And perhaps that's why this moment is called a present. You know, perhaps it has something to offer to us. That's why it is present. You know, something we probably can give to our own self, but we have never done that. So the more you start reading and reflecting on your own question, you know, you'll really understand that that this discovery is a life-altering shift for all of us. And that is the intention of this book read, to introduce this book. This book is, for me, the Gita, the Bible of recognizing, of living life. You know, you can call it any scripture that you want, but Ashish and I have got so deeply influenced that the questions that arise in you are the questions that get answered in this book so magically. So I would say, don't believe me, don't take my word for this, don't believe me when I say that this moment is the most precious, the most magical moment from where you'll start getting solutions to all your life challenges. Experience it for yourself. And then you'll start recognizing that this moment starts to widen into endless, ceaseless timelessness that is so magical. So pick up the copy of the book or read I think Ashish said that he's dropped a PDF link, and try for yourself.
Yeah. Thanks, Nupur. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you. Okay, so I will come to page number 18, if anybody is following. And as Ashish said, that perhaps the numbering is different from different editions. Yeah, because I might have a different edition. So what we are discussing today is still fairly the first half of the book. We are not really going deeper because the first half, the first beginning chapters of the book really kind of lay the foundation of our discussion. So the questioner asks Eckhart, how do I create a gap in my mind stream? How do I become more present? So he says that just bringing your attention into now, just become intensely conscious of the present moment. This is deeply satisfying thing to do. In this way, you draw consciousness away from mind activity and create a gap of no mind, in which you are highly alert and aware but not thinking. And this is the essence of meditation. So I'm going to repeat that line because this is actually a very powerful state that most of us might be actually experiencing when we are striving to do meditation. When we are doing meditation, whichever may be the form of meditation we do, he says that you draw consciousness away from mind activity and create a gap of no mind, in which you are highly alert and aware but not thinking. This is the essence of meditation. In your everyday life, you can practice this by taking any routine activity, that normally is only a means to an end, and give it your fullest attention so that it becomes an end in itself. For example, every time you perhaps walk up and down stairs in your house or workplace, pay close attention to every step, every movement, even your breathing. Be totally present. Or when you wash your hands, pay attention to all the sense perceptions associated with the activity. The sound and feel of the water, the movement of your hands, the scent of the soap, and so on. Or when you get into your car, after you close the door, pause for a few seconds and observe the flow of your breath. Become aware of a silent but powerful sense of presence. There is one certain criterion by which you can measure your success in this practice: the degree of peace that you feel within. So he says that by actually doing, you don't have to find what we feel that we need to find those 15-20 minutes to actually sit and meditate. If we can do that, that's great. But one of the most beautiful and the most simplistic way Eckhart Tolle tells us to increase the presence, recognize the now in our lives is, whatever activity you are doing, be 100% present with that activity. Be with that activity so fully that it actually increases your awareness, it increases your sense of presence and being. And this is one of the most simple things that we do. We all brush our teeth. We all hopefully, are doing things like more often than not, like perhaps we are all doing dishes in our houses through lockdown. So, you recognize that whatever activity you are doing, you can be with that activity 100%, rather than creating that to be a means to an end, that I need to finish brushing my teeth because I need to get to work so that I can get quickly to work. So what happens then? It becomes a means to an end. So now when we are doing this activity, let's become fully present with it, become 100% with the act. And that's how we start to increase the presence in our life. That's how we start to recognize that this moment, this is what I'm doing, and can I be 100% present with it? So these are some of these so this was just one of the nuggets that was there in this book. But like that, we have many other practices that Eckhart shares with us that we can actually start, increasing in our life by doing simple things with presence. And this is just one of the activities, but there's so much more. Ashish, would you like to share any of your experiences in COVID times? Perhaps this is more relevant right now to share that. How did you feel your becoming more present impacted your recovery and healing?
Yeah, sure, Dr. Nupur. And before that, I would like to just refer here to Dr. Eckhart Tolle's talking about experiencing. Most of the times we are so caught up in doing that we don't stop to experience, and I think that is where a big shift lies. And we don't need to sometimes people think it's a very passive thing to do. If I'm just experiencing what I'm doing, then I'm not doing anything else. And like Dr. Nupur was saying, we're always doing to get on to the next thing, and we are always chasing and running, and we stop being in the present, being in the moment and experiencing. I think that is very, very important. And when we start practicing in the being in the present, then a lot of things automatically drop. You're not worrying about what has happened in the past because you're in the present. In present, there rarely ever is any problem in the present. That is what in many different ways Eckhart Tolle is trying to say, that if we are focused in the present, the problems kind of either go away or we find solutions to the problems, because present is all we have got. And sometimes we think that this moment is insignificant. What is there in this moment? This is like 1 second, or but the scientists have split a second into millionth part. So there is a millionth part to a second. There is so much to a second. The entire Big Bang took place in a millionth of a second. So there is immense possibility in each second, which we tend to throw away by being always rushing and focusing on the rather than focus, not even focus, I would say worrying, being anxious. There is so much of anxiety about so many things that are there, and our worrying makes them worse. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons my COVID recovery happened much better, much faster, is because I was just focused on taking one day at a time, and as of not worrying about what may happen. Whatever has to happen will happen, but why worry about it? So staying focused opens up infinite possibilities. It's magical. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashish. That was, when we are present in this moment, we start to recognize that what we are experiencing is what we are experiencing. And one of the big aspects of this book is accepting what you're experiencing in the moment, because whether you recognize or not, it is what it is. So in this book, if you pick up this book, it really comes to light that a lot of what we call suffering is our resistance to what is. A lot of what we call suffering is a resistance to what is in this present moment, in this now. So understanding that, embracing it through acceptance and recognizing that this is what it is in this moment can actually start to rid you of a lot of our suffering. So, and as what Ashish is mentioning, once we recognize and we make peace with that, healing happens. Because when we are in a constant state of resistance, we don't even allow our bodies, our minds to heal, because we are constantly at a tug of war, wanting this experience to be something other than what it is. So this book is very powerful in even reflecting on how we can accept what's going on, accept what is in the now. Going along and reading another paragraph where Eckhart says that nothing exists outside this now. Have you ever experienced, done, thought, or felt anything outside the now? Do you think you ever will? Is it possible for anything to happen or be outside the now? The answer is obvious, is it not? Nothing ever happened in the past. It happened in the now. Nothing will ever happen in the future. It will happen in the now. What you think of the past, what you think of as the past is a memory trace stored in the mind of a former now. Let me repeat that line, it's very powerful. What you think of as the past is a memory trace in the mind of a former now. When you remember the past, you reactivate a memory trace, and you do so now. The future is an imagined now, a projection of the mind. When the future comes, it comes as the now. When you think about the future, you do it now. Past and future obviously have no reality of their own. Just as the moon has no light of its own, but can only reflect the light of the sun, so are the past and future only pale reflections of the light, power, and reality of the eternal present, the eternal present moment. Their reality is borrowed from the now. The essence of what I am saying here cannot be understood by the mind. The moment you grasp it, there is a shift in consciousness from mind to being, from time to presence. Suddenly, everything feels alive, radiates energy, emanates being. I'm going to repeat that last line, is very powerful. The moment you grasp this, there is a shift in consciousness from mind into being, from time to presence. And my friends, that's what Eckhart talks about in this book, that we are not just we are not just a mind doing. We are actually beings. We are human beings, but a lot of time that dimension of ourselves has left unexplored. So he talks about entering a consciousness, a new consciousness, which is actually our essence, the beingness, the presence. And the more we live from that space of awareness, the more we live from that space of beingness, our true nature, our true essence, that all our teachers, whether it's enlightened masters like Buddha or whichever enlightened master you talk about, has always pointed to within you. The peace is within you. The joy, unconditional love is within you. That is who you are. And this is the book that actually takes you into that space, guides you into that space very beautifully. That dimension of our beingness that perhaps we are yet to explore fully. And this book is such a beautiful way. And I cannot stress enough that we all should read this as much as we can. I'm just going to open another section, Ashish.
Sure, Dr. Nupur.
Any reflections so far, friends? Any thoughts that may have, as Anil said, perhaps got you thinking, maybe, wondering, even disagreeing? I would say that one of the best ways to exercise your muscles of spirituality is by perhaps not agreeing with everything that has been told to you, disagreeing, challenging, because those mindsets really actually get you to think that, is there more to what I have experienced? Is there more to what I have been told is the truth of my life? Because that leads you into deeper questioning. And that's exactly how this book landed in my life, because I was beginning to question all the concepts that were handed down to me in my life. This is what it is meant to be. This is how life is meant to be lived. This is who you are. And then when I started questioning these concepts and these societal norms, that's when magically this book landed in my life and introduced me to a deeper dimension of my beingness. So questioning is really good. Challenging is really good. So thank you, Anil, for that challenging question also. Anybody has anything to share? Any questions? That'll be very wise at this time.
Hey, Doctor.
Hi, Atul.
One of the thoughts that has come to me is, this mobile camera that we use every now and then these days is actually taking us away from the now. I'll give you an example. If there's a film star coming, for example, you spot the film star somewhere in the airport, you take out a mobile camera and start clicking photographs instead of being in the now. And you never really get around to going back home and looking at those photographs once that now is over. I don't know what you think, because we're forever clicking photographs. And what are those photographs doing to us? Are we sitting down and looking at them at some time? In any case, then that's taking us into the past, isn't it?
Beautiful reflection, Atul. That's such a deep reflection. that what happens is that we are not present enough in the moment to really absorb, soak it up, experience it fully. We are more caught up in taking a picture of that moment to reflect back in a future when that moment actually had become the past. So it is the irony of our human experience, I would say, such an irony that we are all trying to capture the now instead of experiencing and living the now. What a beautiful reflection, Atul. I really, it's amazing that and it's so. It's have you read the book, Atul, Power of
No, I
Now?
haven't. I just I've been here listening to you. That's it. And I attended one of the earlier sessions of Ashish, and I found it extremely invigorating.
Yeah, thank you. And that's what this book does to us. We realize that how much of our life have we just kind of missed? How much of life has actually passed us by because we were so caught up in our minds, we were so caught up in the past or future that we actually didn't live life, because life is always in this moment. This moment, it is the eternal now. This moment then transforms into the next moment, but it is always still the now. But so much of our life just passes us by. And the more you read a book which is so alive with its pointings, this book is so alive with its pointings. It may have been written in 1990s because it is channeled by this awakened master who's like a Buddha walking amongst us right now. Its reflections are so profound that it brings these insights in our lives, like the insight you just had, Atul. This insight that you just had by just listening, by just being in this group of like-minded beings, hopefully who all share our passion for growing into something beyond our humanness, perhaps into our beingness also, that these reflections will continue to come to you. And that's why I keep saying with every phrase, do pick up this book. There is another book by Eckhart, which is The New Earth. Inshallah, we'll get an opportunity to read that also at some point in time. But these are the books, whichever book you choose to pick up, they are teeming with these amazing reflections that you yourselves will chance upon. So thank you, Atul, for that amazing gem of a reflection. Thank you. It was my bad that I lost track of time and I thought half an hour was 1 hour. It is what timelessness does to one person. We have 3 more minutes left, Ashish, but before I finish with another paragraph, any thoughts you have?
Yeah, there is a question which is also very interesting, Dr. Nupur. And he asks, how do we live in now if something is planned, So I guess the other way to look also would be, does living in now, prevent us from planning for the future? So if you could just respond to both these parts of the question.
Yes, so living in the now, the second part of your question was, does it prevent us from planning for the future? Yeah. So there is an aspect of the now that we absolutely are, what we call the practical aspect of the now, that we need to plan for the future, we need to reflect on the past. But when the problem starts is when we start obsessing about the future and we start obsessing about the past. Because the practical mind is a wonderful tool. The practical mind is actually one of our empowerments as human beings. Because if you reflect from where we have come from, being cave dwellers, from being what we were, our ancestors, to where we are now, we have used our mind very, very strategically. But we have to also recognize that there is an aspect of practicality which the mind is great at. But the problems that we have started experiencing as a human race is when we have started obsessing about future and obsessing about past. And that is what overshadows the present moment. That is what takes us out of the present moment. If we are so efficient and if we are so present, then we will only use that much capacity that is needed to plan for the future or to reflect from the past or to learn from the past. But versus, completely utilizing all the available resources into worrying or into absolutely, letting go of understanding that this moment can actually, even if I am 100% present, if I'm fully in the now, it can actually become a source of inspiration, perhaps, from where a lot of our works flow. In fact, Eckhart mentioned somewhere in his book that all the artists, all the inventors, all the scientists that have come up with all the discoveries, all their artwork, actually don't do it from the mind space. They do it from a space of presence. They do it from this space of awareness through which the inspiration and ideas flow to them. But we don't free our present moment enough for this to happen to us because we are obsessing about the future and the past. So when you pick up this book, really read that section where he talks about that the real invention, the real discovery, the real art flows from the now, from the presence. And that's what impacts our future. In fact, all the scientists that are working towards even creating vaccination, and if you look at any of these autobiographies of all these inventors, you will realize that they all talk about this presence that they were in, from which this flowed effortlessly. Ashish, did I miss the first part of the question, or did I cover both? I'm sorry.
No, I think it's good. Let's ask Darshan. Darshan, does this help? You can unmute and speak if you have a follow-up question, or you could just type on the chat that this works. Yeah, Darshan says it's good.
Okay, wonderful.
Thanks, Darshan. Thanks. That was a great question.
Thank you. And as I was saying that, it's great to have questions. It's great to have doubts in our mind and read this book with that, and you would be amazed that the question that you have will actually come up in the subsequent chapters. That is the magic of this book. You will have a question and the very next chapter will actually address it. It is amazing how all the works by Eckhart magically address all your concerns. So, keep up the questions, keep up your queries, and see how they get answered in the books, in the chapters that are coming. Yeah. So, Ashish, do we have time, or are we up? Because my time zone is different, that's why I'm a little timeless right now. So you have to keep telling me that.
Yes, now we are kind of at the end of the session, Dr. Nupur. Thank you very much for the lovely sharing and reading, and the insights that you shared. They were very, very powerful. I really appreciate that, Dr. Nupur.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you to each one of you for being here.